This is Andi Purewal, Boxing News. I'm joined by promoter Eddie Hearn after another night of boxing. Eddie, we're going to be doing a lot of these in the coming weeks, but Jack Catterall there has just sent Jorge Linares into retirement. Just your thoughts on the performance and finally getting one over Jorge?
Yeah, look, I thought it was a good performance. I mean, I think everybody wants excitement, and I think he should have stepped on the gas a little bit more. I think maybe just gave him a little bit too much respect, but it was a class performance. You know, it was a shutout against a three-division world champion. And you can't just go in reckless against Jorge Linares. He can punch. He was trying to walk him onto the backhand. I think when he had him hurt in the 6th round, should have stepped on the gas a little bit. But also, you're thinking about, you get beat, you make a mistake, you're fucked. And you can forget about Josh Taylor, you can forget about Devin Haney and Regis Prograis. And, he moves on now to a big fight.
Before we continue with Jack, just a word on Jorge Linares, who's had a fantastic career and been a great servant to the sport.
Yeah, class act. I mean, still, knew his timing wasn't quite there tonight, but never stopped trying. Always in the fight, trying to press the fight, and a wonderful career. Great fighter, great ambassador for the sport, and wish him all the best.
Josh Taylor's been very vocal over social media, Eddie. What have you made of his tweets?
Yeah, I think, look, Josh Taylor's very entertaining in and out of the ring. And I love fighters like him because he's going to come to that presser, he's going to slag off Jack Catterall, he's going to stick the nut in on him, and it's going to be vicious in and out of the ring. And that's the kind of fights that are going to get people excited. So every fighter wants to win a world title, and, it's boring now to talk about Jack should have been world champion, but we've got a chance to make a big British fight. And you've seen with Wood Warrington, you've seen with Smith Eubank 1 and maybe Ben Eubank, they work. And that's a fight that sells very well and works very well. And I think it's the one that should be next.
I was about to say, more likely that you see that than opposed to anything else.
Yeah, we've got so many fighters at 140. The biggest fight in the division that's made is, of course, Haney Prograis. And he could fight the winner of that. But I think realistically, we could move forward now with a fight, as early as next week with Top Rank. And we've had exploratory conversations, nothing too deep, but I think now's the time to really explore if that fight is a possibility.
Just look at some of the undercard as well. Fiaz's first defeat tonight to Bellotti. Just your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, whether he wasn't ready or he wasn't good enough, doesn't really matter. He got beat. Bellotti was just too experienced. His engine was too good. He was too strong. And I'm chuffed for Bellotti. His story is incredible. He won a Commonwealth title. He got beat a few times. Thought he was retired, really, and then heard that he'd had another fight somewhere. Came back, got the opportunity against Yusuf Kamari. That was a massive win. And, away from home, got another big win tonight. Now he'll fight, I think, Liam Dillon for the British title. Could go on to fight for the European title. And, Akib's got to rebuild. He's got to come again. He took the chance. He'll get a chance to come back in an 8-rounder. But he has to be better if he's going to operate at the levels that we want fighters to operate at. So it's got to hurt. He's got to lick his wounds and come back and improve.
You've said particularly over his last few weeks you want to be a little bit harsher with fighters, make sure that they're taking the right fights as opposed to maybe one more tick over, one more kind of easy or comeback fight. What's the plan with Campbell Hatton? Because obviously 14-0 now, I imagine you want to see him have somewhat of a step up next.
I really do. I mean, someone was just talking about Campbell Hatton against Aqib Fiaz. That's a huge fight for Manchester. And it's a fight that's got a lot of jeopardy. I mean, look, when you're representing Campbell Hatton, you know that he's still learning. He looks like he's making some improvements. I felt for him tonight because I think the opponent just didn't come to fight. But there's a lot of people that are criticising him, and he's had 14 fights. You can't say he hasn't had the opportunity to learn, right? We know he's a novice and all that kind of stuff, but he's still had 14 fights. The next fight must be a 10-rounder, and it must be a fight that is interesting. And a fight that some people say, now whether that's Aqib Fiaz or whether that comes the fight after or whatever, you can't just keep having easy fights. And, I'm sure Ricky and Matthew, it's difficult sometimes because if I had my way, I would make Aqib Fiaz against Campbell Hatton now. Right? Because I'm looking at it thinking, great fight. He's coming off a defeat. People are questioning him. Sells loads of tickets in Manchester, But if you're training Campbell Hatton or you're managing him, you're saying, we're probably 2 or 3 fights away from that. No problem if we are, but there've got to be 2 or 3 fights that carry some jeopardy now. So we'll be working with him and, this whole thing about putting fighters in tougher fights, you still got to give them the opportunity to be ready for those fights. But he's 14-0. So we're nearly there.
Just your thoughts on the rest of the card as well, please?
Yeah, Peter McGrail boxed really well. I mean, he's been out of the ring for 7 months. He's unbelievably talented and skillful. And I thought Mendoza was a handful. I mean, he buzzed him in the first round, but he composed himself well. It was a good performance. I really like Khalil Majid. I think we talked earlier about prospects looking good and making statements, and I think that was a statement from him. I love the work from Buddy McGirt in the corner and the advice that he was getting, and also, little Jack Turner, little roughhouse, really exciting, punches really, really hard. A William Crawler, exactly what I said. Your level's above this guy. Go and beat him up. But I want to see you win over 4 rounds. Or if you do, make sure you dominate him. And like a good example, Muhammad Ali, who didn't win by stoppage, did that. He dominated an undefeated fighter and looked good. And Paddy Lacey, not a next-gen fighter, but a good knockout for him. And some good performances tonight.
Shabaz Masoud unfortunately falling ill yesterday. Just a word on him as well, trying to make that fight.
It's a shame, I think whenever a fighter gets ill or sick, it's hard for them to pull out. And he was ill before the weigh-in, and then obviously making the weight as well just took it out of him, and he had to make the right decision. But it's not something that's going to keep him out for a long time, and we'll be announcing his next fight probably this week.
Just a couple away from you said it. Tyson Fury's representative Spencer Brown's confirmed they have every intention to go on December 23rd. Change your plans for Eubank Jr-Benn now?
Yeah, who knows? Spencer Brown is probably the one that knows most. He's the one that did the deal for Tyson Fury in Saudi Arabia. He's very, very involved in the camp. I believe it's definitely on the cards for December 23rd, but they want to see what happens next week. So, we've been having conversations in the last 24 hours, and we're going to move forward with Ben Eubank this week, and we're going to get it signed, and we're going to make sure this fight happens in Britain. That's what we want to do. The 23rd, we'll see what happens after this Saturday, but if not, we'll look for a January date. But that's what we want to do, and I think it's time now everyone's bored of the talking, time to get it in the diary.
So from your conversations, Eddie, from what you've just said, that kind of suggests maybe things have moved in a positive manner with the board to try and get it on over here?
To the board. If they want to sanction the fight, it's up to them. And, if I promote the fight, maybe if someone else promotes the fight, I don't know. But we want to make that fight in Britain. Conor Benn is not suspended. He won his case. He's clear to box in this country. Now, if we have to enforce that legally or we have to do something different, then we'll do that. With all due respect, the British Boxing Board of Control are running the event in Saudi Arabia. They're sanctioning that event. They're sanctioning the main event between a 34-0 world heavyweight champion, who is the #1 heavyweight in the world, and a man that has never put on a pair of boxing gloves before in a professional fight. So they're okay to sanction that, but they're not okay to sanction a fighter that's won his case against the board and UKAD, and he's not suspended and cleared to fight. So we hope they come back to us, but we have every intention of holding that fight in the UK.
One final thing, Eddie. Unfortunately, obviously in the past we've seen you'll say 2 weeks time, or you'll be aiming for a certain date, it doesn't happen, or we look at Wilder Joshua recently, 100% Eubank Benn happens next.
Yeah, look, they haven't signed, but Kalle Sauerland wants the fight. We want the fight. Conor Benn wants the fight. Chris Eubank wants the fight. So I don't think I can sit here and say, it's signed, but we have every intention of doing the fight, and we've just made a decision from our side that we're ready to move forward with that fight in the UK.
I know you're a busy man. You've got more shows on the horizon too. So
Cancun, we fly out to Cancun in a couple of days. A massive fight for the super featherweight division. Rocky Hernandez against O'Shaki Foster. Also look out for Justice Huni against Andrew Tabiti. Heavyweight fight on that card. And then off to Monaco for Joe Caldina, #1 in the division. Hopefully the winner of those 2 fights can fight each other.
Can I just very quickly get a breakdown, please, of what you expect on the main event next weekend?
Rocky Hernandez is one of the biggest punchers I've ever seen. O'Shaki Foster is one of the most underrated boxers I've ever seen. He's so skillful. Rocky can be a little bit crude sometimes, but fuck me, he hits like a train. It's just whether he can get hold of O'Shaki Foster. He may get outboxed in that fight, but he can knock Foster out and any super featherweight out. He has the power to do it. So it's going to be a thriller, and he's got it on home soil. We won the purse bid. Good luck to him.
I appreciate your time as always. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.